Pooh Shiesty, one of the hottest rappers to come out of Memphis in the last few years, is reportedly in critical condition after allegedly getting jumped by Crips inside a federal prison. And trust me, this situation goes way deeper than just another prison fight. Because this wasn't some random scuffle that popped off out of nowhere. This whole situation is tied to loyalty, street politics, and what really happens when a famous rapper gets locked up and thinks celebrity status might keep him protected. Spoiler alert, it absolutely does not. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you're going to fully understand what allegedly happened to Pooh Shiesty, why things escalated the way they did, and why this has become one of the wildest stories to hit the rap world this year. Let's get into it. But before we dive all the way in, let me set the stage real quick, because some of y'all might not fully know who Pooh Shiesty is, or why this story has everybody talking. And trust me, once you understand the background, everything else is going to hit way hard. So pay attention, because I'm not repeating myself. Pooh Shiesty, whose real name is Lontrell Dennell Williams Jr., is a rapper from Memphis, Tennessee. Born November 8th, 1999, he blew up at a ridiculously young age. Most people in their early 20s are still trying to figure life out, but this man was already topping charts and going platinum. He signed to Gucci Mane's 1017 Records and came into the rap game swinging hard. His debut mixtape, Shiesty Season, dropped in January 2021 and instantly took off. The project debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, which is crazy for a mixtape. Not even a full studio album, and it still landed in the top 5 nationally. Then came Back in Blood with Lil Durk, and after that, Pooh Shiesty was basically everywhere. The record went multi-platinum, his name was ringing across the industry, and for a minute, it looked like nothing could slow him down. But then everything changed almost overnight. Back in October 2021, Pooh Shiesty pleaded guilty to a federal conspiracy to commit robbery charge. The case stemmed from a 2020 incident in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida, where he and others were accused of robbing 2 men at a hotel. During that situation, one of the victims was reportedly shot. And look, regardless of how people feel about Pooh Shiesty, somebody getting shot is serious, and once federal authorities get involved, things usually get ugly fast. In August 2022, Pooh Shiesty was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. And if you know anything about the federal system, then you know inmates usually end up serving most of their sentence. We're talking around 85% of that time. He was reportedly placed in a low-security federal correctional institution. And at first, some people probably assumed that meant things wouldn't get too dangerous. Yeah, not exactly, because this is where the story starts getting really crazy. Reports began surfacing that Pooh Shiesty allegedly wasn't adjusting well to prison life at all. Now, obviously, prison isn't supposed to be comfortable for anybody, but this situation allegedly went beyond the normal struggles. Remember, Pooh Shiesty is a famous rapper, millions of followers, platinum records, money, industry connections. From the outside looking in, some people probably assumed his fame would earn him a certain level of respect or protection behind bars. That's not how federal prison works. Inside prison, especially federal facilities, your success on the outside doesn't automatically mean anything. What matters is where you're from, who you're connected to, what affiliations you have, and whether or not you can stand your ground when things get serious. In some cases, being famous can actually make things worse, because now you become a target. People want stripes off your name. They want the reputation that comes with testing somebody high profile. In prison, being known can put a giant target on your back. Now let's get into the alleged incident itself, because this is the part that really sent social media into a frenzy. According to multiple circulating reports, Pooh Shiesty was allegedly involved in a serious altercation inside the prison facility where he's currently housed. And this reportedly wasn't just a one-on-one fight. Reports claim he was jumped by multiple individuals allegedly tied to the Crips. During the altercation, Pooh Shiesty reportedly suffered major injuries, and the detail that instantly went viral online was the claim that one of his teeth got knocked completely out. Yeah, a whole tooth. Now, obviously the internet started clowning and turning it into jokes, because that's what social media does. But when you really think about it, that level of injury points to a brutal fight. Teeth don't just fly out from a weak punch. That suggests serious force and serious damage. And the early reports claiming he was in critical condition had people genuinely concerned about how bad the situation actually got. That's what made this story explode. But before we go deeper, y'all need to understand the prison politics behind all of this, because without that context, none of this fully makes sense. And honestly, this is where things get way deeper than rap music. Pooh Shiesty comes from Memphis, Tennessee. And Memphis has its own street culture that's different from places like Los Angeles, Chicago, or New York. A lot of Memphis sets and affiliations developed independently over time. But once artists from Memphis become nationally famous, they inevitably end up connected to bigger gang politics, whether directly or indirectly. Pooh Shiesty has publicly been associated with people connected to blood-affiliated circles. Now, when you enter a federal prison, you're no longer just around people from your city, you're locked in with inmates from everywhere: Compton, South Central, LA, Chicago, New York, Atlanta, all over. And everybody brings their affiliations with them. So when someone tied to a blood-associated circle enters an environment where there's reportedly a strong Crip presence, tensions can rise immediately. In the world of prison politics, situations like this aren't always random. Sometimes conflict is almost expected. The streets don't just disappear because somebody got locked up. And another thing people keep asking is, why doesn't Pooh Shiesty just go into protective custody? For those who don't know, protective custody, or PC, is basically separate housing for inmates who are considered at risk. On paper, that sounds like the obvious answer. Famous rapper, high-profile target, just separate him from general population, right? But prison culture is way more complicated than that. Inside prison culture, going to PC carries a heavy stigma. A lot of inmates view it as admitting you can't survive in general population. People will say you checked in or couldn't hold your own. And for someone like Pooh Shiesty, whose image and career are built around authenticity, toughness, and street credibility, that kind of label could seriously affect how people view him once he gets out. That's what makes this situation so complicated. Because staying in general population could put him in danger, but going into protective custody could damage the image and credibility his career was built on. That's a brutal position for anybody to be in. And when it comes to daily life in federal prison, it's nothing like the glamorous image some people imagine celebrities getting. Pooh Shiesty reportedly doesn't have luxury treatment, private rooms, or special accommodation. In low-security federal prisons, inmates are often housed in dormitory-style units with very little privacy. You're constantly surrounded by different personalities, affiliations, and tensions from all over the country. Sure, some inmates might respect his music or know his songs, but fame cuts both ways. Some people admire you while others want to test you. Some want clout. Some want money. Some just want to see if your real-life energy matches the image you put in your music. And then there's the money fact. People know Pooh Shiesty has outside support and access to money through commissary accounts. Even if inmates can't directly touch outside cash, they know famous rappers usually have resources coming in, and in prison, that can create another level of pressure because certain people may allegedly try to extort inmates they believe have money, give up commissary, favors, or resources, or deal with consequences. And according to reports surrounding this situation, things may have escalated into exactly that kind of dangerous environment. Being rich and famous in prison can actually make your situation even more dangerous, not safer. And honestly, are we really surprised? Because part of me is shocked, but another part of me completely gets it. Now, let's talk about the mental side of all this for a second, because people overlook that way too much whenever incarcerated rappers get discussed online. Everybody focuses on the physical part, the fights, the injuries, the headlines. But mentally, what Pooh Shiesty is allegedly going through has to be brutal. Think about it. This is a young man who went from being one of the hottest rappers in the country, performing at festivals, recording in big studios, traveling everywhere, living that superstar lifestyle, to suddenly being locked inside a federal prison for years. Meanwhile, the outside world keeps moving without him. New rappers are blowing up. Artists from his generation are still dropping albums, going on tour, building brands, making millions. And he's forced to watch all of that from behind bars with limited communication and no real ability to participate. Psychologically, that has to hit hard in a way most people probably can't even fully understand. And now add physical violence on top of that. On top of being separated from family, freedom, and career opportunities, he's reportedly dealing with danger inside the facility itself. He's dealing with the reality that something can pop off at any moment. And the scary part is, in prison environments, staff can't always react immediately when situations escalate. That's another uncomfortable truth about federal prison. Guards aren't everywhere at once. The staff to inmate ratio isn't exactly ideal, so when fights break out inside a dorm or prison yard, things can turn violent fast before anybody steps in. At that point, this stops feeling like internet entertainment and starts feeling very real. Because now we're talking about an actual human being allegedly caught in a genuinely dangerous environment. So naturally, people are asking, what is the Bureau of Prisons doing about Pooh Shiesty's safety? That's probably a question his legal team and family are asking too. But here's the frustrating reality. The Bureau of Prisons is extremely secretive about incidents inside federal facilities. They're not rushing to hold press conferences every time inmates fight or someone gets hurt. Most information leaks out through inmates, lawyers, family members, or people hearing details through phone calls and visits. What we do know is that when serious incidents happen, especially ones involving reported major injuries, there are supposed to be procedures, medical evaluations, investigations, documentation, disciplinary action for whoever was involved. But here's where people criticize the system. Even after violent incidents happen, many believe the institutional response is often slow or ineffective. And if the core issues inside the facility remain the same tensions, same rivalries, same gang politics, then nothing is really solved long term. You can investigate an assault after it happens, but if the environment stays unchanged, another incident can allegedly happen again. And honestly, that's the scariest part of this whole story. Because if Pooh Shiesty refuses protective custody and prison officials allegedly fail to fully address the situation, then people start wondering not if something else could happen, but when. Now, I also want to address something else, because there are definitely people online saying he made his choices or he knew what came with that lifestyle. And look, nobody's denying the decisions that led to him being in federal prison. Pooh Shiesty pleaded guilty. That part is public record. But at the same time, there's a difference between serving a prison sentence and allegedly being violently attacked. The court sentenced him to prison time. The court did not sentence him to getting jumped or severely injured. Those are two completely different conversations. And honestly, this situation highlights a bigger issue beyond just Pooh Shiesty himself. Stories like this shine a light on what life inside American prisons can really look like: gang politics, violence, pressure, impossible choices between safety and reputation. A lot of people dealing with this aren't famous rappers. They're regular inmates whose stories never trend online. That's what makes this bigger than celebrity gossip. Now, another thing people have been discussing online is the pressure Pooh Shiesty probably faces because of who he is and where he comes from. He's connected to Gucci Mane's 1017 label. He built an image around authenticity and toughness, and people naturally expect him to carry himself a certain way behind bars. Some people expect him to stay solid no matter what. Others allegedly want to test him specifically because of his reputation. And prison isn't the kind of environment where people test each other with words. It gets physical. So he's walking into this environment with expectations and pressure coming from every direction at once. Fans watching, opponents watching, other inmates watching. That's a lot for anybody, especially someone still so young. And remember, Gucci Mane himself did federal time. Gucci has openly talked about how difficult incarceration was even for him. So if someone with that level of status struggled, that tells you prison is no joke, regardless of fame. But here's another layer people haven't really talked about enough. What happens to Pooh Shiesty's career after all this? Because despite being locked up, his music is still streaming. His records are still getting played. His name is still alive in hip-hop culture, and rap history has shown that incarceration can sometimes make artists even more talked about. Some rappers come home bigger than before. But the key word there is come home. That only works if the artist makes it through physically and mentally okay. And every reported incident like this raises bigger questions about what condition Pooh Shiesty will be in when he eventually walks free again. Not just career-wise, human-wise. Will he mentally be the same person? Will the violence and prison environment leave long-term scars? That's the part of this whole situation that really hits different when you stop and think about it. Now, let's talk about the tooth injury for a second, because as graphic as that detail sounds, it allegedly says a lot about how violent the situation became. Getting a tooth knocked out usually doesn't happen from one clean punch during a quick fight. That kind of injury often points towards someone being overwhelmed, taking repeated shots, or dealing with multiple attackers at once. And remember, Reports claim this was allegedly a coordinated jump involving several people. That's not a fair fight. And situations like that are exactly why prison reform advocates constantly talk about staffing issues, monitoring failures, and the dangers of gang-related violence inside facilities. Because coordinated attacks don't just magically happen in 1 second. If something reached the point where somebody reportedly ended up seriously injured, people naturally start questioning how it escalated that far in the first place. Now, one thing that's also important here is separating confirmed facts from internet exaggeration. Because when stories involving celebrities and prisons hit social media, details can get messy fast. Rumors spread, things get exaggerated, some accounts become unreliable. What seems consistent across multiple reports is that there was allegedly a serious altercation involving Pooh Shiesty and individuals tied to gang affiliations, and that injuries were involved. But specific details, exact medical condition, exact number of attackers, and every detail surrounding the incident are still difficult to independently confirm with total certainty. Still, this story didn't just appear out of nowhere and disappear. It gained traction because multiple sources and people connected to prison circles were discussing it seriously, and the reaction from people close to Pooh Shiesty in the Memphis rap scene shows genuine concern. People are clearly worried about it. And when you step back and look at the full picture, this entire situation feels bigger than just another viral rap headline. Pooh Shiesty had one of the strongest breakout runs Memphis rap has seen in years. The music, the features, the energy, the momentum, he really had the industry paying attention. Then a series of choices and circumstances landed him in federal prison at a very young age. Now he's navigating one of the harshest environments imaginable: prison, politics, gang tensions, pressure from every side, and now allegedly surviving a violent attack serious enough to become national news. And according to reports, he still refuses to go into protective custody because in his world, that decision could damage everything his image was built on. So instead, he remains in general population and takes the risk that comes with it. That's heavy when you really think about it. At the end of the day, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has a responsibility to protect inmates in their custody, famous or not. Doesn't matter if someone is a rapper, an athlete, or a regular civilian. Basic safety should still matter. And when situations reportedly escalate to this level, people are naturally going to question whether the system is doing enough. Honestly, this has become one of the most sobering stories to hit hip-hop in a long time, because underneath all the headlines and internet jokes, there's a real person at the center of it. Lontrell Dennell Williams Jr., a young artist with real talent, real mistakes, real consequences, but still a human being. And right now, there are a lot of fans genuinely hoping he makes it through this situation safely, gets healthy, and eventually gets another chance to continue his career. That's not about excusing anything, that's just basic humanity. And that's the full breakdown of the Pooh Shiesty situation, the reported prison attack, the injuries, the gang politics, why protective custody is such a complicated topic, and what all of this could mean for one of Memphis's biggest rap stars. If this video gave you a different perspective on the situation, hit that like button because it really helps the channel out. Drop your thoughts in the comments too. Do you think prison officials need to do more in situations like this? And if you want more deep dives and real breakdowns without all the extra fluff, make sure you subscribe because we've got more videos coming soon. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.